This is why small business matters from Northumbria University, supporting small businesses with the Help to Grow management programme.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Why Small Business Matters. My name's Matt Sutherland, and in today's episode, we visit the world of sport.
You know, actually for me as an athlete, my first sponsors were small businesses, really small, but local businesses.
Today, I'm joined by Tanni Grey-Thompson, 16-time Olympic medalist. Tanni is one of Britain's greatest athletes. She has competed in 5 Paralympic Games, going on to secure 11 gold, 4 silver and 1 bronze, as well as securing countless medals from the World Championships. Tanni is a record breaker, breaking as many as 30 world records on the track and the roads, including the 400 and 5,000 metres, as well as the half marathon in the Great North Run. In 2005, she was made a Dame and was appointed to the House of Lords as a crossbench peer in 2010, where she debates issues including welfare reforms, accessibility and equality, and sport. On an institutional level, we are privileged that Tanni is the Chancellor of Northumbria University, a position she has held since 2015. My guests don't just stop there, and I'm delighted to also be joined by Colin Allen, strategic and programme lead with over 15 years supporting the development and athlete talent and pathways at the Sports Aid Trust. He also now brings his experience to the boardroom, acting as a non-executive director for the British American Football Association and chairing the British Universities and College Sport Performance Academy Group. Welcome to you both. Tanni, from the outside looking in, you can imagine when professional athletes retire that they should have a little bit more time. It should be a little less hectic. But in your case, I don't think that's true.
No, so I went from a retirement to working on games delivery for London 2012 Games. And then in 2010, I retired beginning of 2007. 2010, I went into the House of Lords, which takes up a huge amount of time. I mean, really worthwhile, and it gives you a platform, and it's an amazing place to be. But for me, I never wanted my sporting career to be the only thing I did in my life, because I competed at 5 games and I was incredibly lucky to do that, but it's tiny moments of your life. And when I was in my late 20s, Dave Moorcroft said to me, "You're a long time retired." And there were lots of other people who had an influence on that, but it made me think about, what I wanted to do next. I actually started planning my retirement at 21 and retired at 36 and a half.
And that led into, sorry, this is great, because you're now a crossbench peer into that. And what does that really mean? What is a crossbench peer? What does that involve on a day-to-day?
So a crossbencher is someone who's not aligned to a political party. And I never have been, because my views depend on the issues. I'm a bit all over the place, to be honest. And as a peer, our job in the House of Lords, we're not there to run the country. We're nominated, we're there for life, we're not elected. So we get a lot of arguments that we're not democratic. But our job is to say to the government of the day and the House of Commons, have another think, we think you can do better. So some stuff we can send back 3 times, some stuff we can send back more. But our job is to be a check and balance. And it's really simple. I mean, the day-to-day reality is a bit more complicated than that. But basically, we're a bit like the school prefects. And
it's funny when you say you're reading and you're sort of validating some of the government's work, because there was a Sporting Futures report that came about in 2015, and that was all about encouraging people into sport. But there was a balance, I think, that had to be there, didn't it? And this is the balance around winning medals, but also about welfare. And this is where maybe you picked it up and started sort of rolling with it.
Yeah, so after Sporting Futures came out, Tracy Crouch, who was the sports minister at the time, one of the things that came out was issues around duty of care, and she asked me to look at that. And my remit was massive in terms of the number of governing bodies, grassroots in England, professional sport. I was asked to look at loads of things. But the bit I guess I chose to focus on was looking at participants. And that is athletes, coaches, physios, everyone who is in the system, and look at how they're treated. And there were a number of cases that weren't public. And actually early on, there was a lot of pushback on the work that I was doing, because people were saying to me, there's not a problem in sport. And there's not a widespread problem. But actually, as time went on, a few more cases started becoming public. And I think it is a difficult balance between medals and, elite sport is not warm and cuddly. And I don't think you should say to a 12-year-old, okay, you want to compete at the highest level you can, but to be really miserable, you'll never get selected, you'll never earn any money, your parents will spend a fortune, you won't make it, and you'll be, injured and broken at 16. So that is not the right thing to do, because we need to have that aspirational moment for young people. But it's actually how you guide and support them through that process, because elite sport's not balanced. I was training twice a day, 6 days a week, 50 weeks of the year. My wedding and the birth of my daughter was based around my competition schedule. We had a cut-off date for being pregnant. So that is not balanced. But what you need to do is put balance back in when you retire or you step away or you're not selected. And I'm really keen to think about how athletes take some responsibility for what they do outside sport. But also we know athletes who do other things, are better athletes. And, my own experience, I'm a massive fan of doing sport and being educated, because my dad would love me saying all this, because you need something to fall back on, and the other thing my dad used to say all the time is education gives you choices. Like, oh. And as a child, I'd be like, oh, whatever. But it does, because, for some people when they retire, they get lots of options. But then, some don't, and there's a process that you have to go through in retirement. So, I'm really keen that athletes get to do other stuff, and you're a long time retired, so you need to have something else to do with your life.
You need to have a fallback, yeah. So this seems really important. So who was the pushback from initially then, when you started this work?
Oh, all sorts of people in the system. Performance directors who are worried that if they let athletes do other things, then they wouldn't get the medals. Some of the funding bodies, some journalists, and actually, I'd have to say probably the journalists were pretty good, because they see so many different parts of the jigsaw that is an elite sport. But I think, nobody wants to go back to the days of the 96 Olympics where Britain won a single gold medal with Steve Redgrave and Matt Pinsent. By the way, Paralympics did really well, but everyone forgets that. Because they all talk, 96. And it's like, well, no, it's just the Olympic team that had a bad games. But it's actually how you find that balance. And also what we should be doing. Yes, elite sport provides inspirational moments, and it's great, and it brings a nation together. But we also need to be thinking about how people can be physically active and contribute to the health and the economic health of the nation. So physical activity, for me, is also an important part of that process, because to be an elite athlete, you need skill, and you need opportunity, and you need a bit of the right place at the right time, and meeting the right coach and you need the right support, and you need the right physical. And there is so much luck that can happen in an athlete's career. We need to think about how people can be healthy for the whole of their lives. And that's kind of big, important thing for me as well.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So your report was quite holistic, wasn't it then? It was thinking about a number of things rather than simply just winning. It was published in 2017. What were some of the main outcomes and main recommendations to come out of that report that had to be considered around duty of care?
So the first recommendation I called for was to have an ombudsman for sport. And I'm not caught up in the name. I called it that just to call it something. And it's quite interesting, because a few people say, we can't have an ombudsman, we should have something else. And it's like, well, but an ombudsman sounds better than we need some kind of body that can have oversight, independent oversight. And that's really, there has to be a bar. It can't just be somebody, moaning about their coach. I had somebody contact me recently, and it sounded really serious, and they were talking about safeguarding and bullying, and it turns out their coach wanted a training diary from them. That's not, well, it could be, but in that case it wasn't. So there's been some pushback on that. So there's been, a few different ways. UK Sport have just announced an independent helpline, and there are steps, but I think people are worried about the size and cost of an ombudsman, and also lifting the lid on some of these things. But my argument to that is, how many more sports are going to go through challenges which become public? We've got the White Review into gymnastics, we've had cycling, and there's a number of sports that aren't public. Now, that's not to say there's really, really good parts of those sports who do amazing things, but you have pockets of behaviour which isn't. And the 2012 games were amazing, but I think it brought about a set of behaviours that's quite hard to dial back from, because it was hugely successful, and the country wants more success, and we love it when our athletes do really well. But the question I have is, when people say, well, if you apply duty of care, we're not going to have medals. How many medals did we win? Now, there's not a huge number of people in the sporting system that can tell me how many medals we won in London and Rio and Tokyo. Yeah, if you work in that sport, you do. If you work for some other body, yes, you do. But the people in the street, and I've done this. I've wandered around where I live in London and all sorts of places and stopped people and said, "Can I have a quick chat?" People remember moments. They remember watching a triathlon, or they remember watching a swim or clay pigeons. They remember these things, and so it comes back to there's that balance between wanting these moments. I'm as guilty of anyone. Is I watch curling at the Winter Olympics and Paralympics. Go, this is amazing. I think I'm more of an expert than Steve Cram, and then I don't watch it for 4 years, and then I watch it again when it comes out. So I'm being honest there, but we love these moments, and so we need balance. And for me, to keep being successful as a nation in sport, you kind of just need to have balance in people's lives.
Yeah, and it was this. So this is really important. So in 2017. You brought and created awareness for duty of care and to be talked about and for people to take it seriously. But actually, Colin, working in sports aid, or specifically the Talented Athlete Scholarship Scheme, you were a little bit ahead of your time, because actually this is something that you as a business were already taking very seriously.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Within TAS, we've always sort of championed sort of duty of care, for want of a better term. We didn't call it that back when the scheme was established, but we certainly were one of the leading voices, I believe, around what we would call dual career. So supporting an athlete to both develop as an athlete and hopefully go on to win bagfuls of medals at Olympics, Paralympics or World Championships. Whilst also getting that personal development and education, so that, as Tanny says, that they have those choices come the end of their career. Because at some point, athlete's career is going to end, hopefully after lots of success, but it will end. And we felt and continue to feel that it's right that those athletes are supported, so that we can support them on those transitions out of sport into the next stage of their life.
It sounds like you've been speaking to Tanny's dad. I think actually, it's tell us a little bit more about TAS. Tell us a little bit more about the model that you use and the business that you run.
Yes, so we are predominantly funded by Sport England, and in the past have been supported by UK Sport, but currently that's England. We support in the region of around 500 athletes currently, but we have got big ambitions to scale that up over the next cycle, to hopefully be supporting closer to 1,200 come sort of over the next 3 years, so 1,200 athletes a year. And our model is very simple, really. We have it's simple on paper anyway. We have a delivery network of university partners across the country. Currently there's 34 in that network. Athletes are supported by a team of practitioners at those institutions. They'll receive their sports science support, so strength and conditioning, physio, nutrition, psychology. There's a medical scheme around there as well that an athlete can get access to diagnostics and treatment should they need that for sport injuries. And then there's also a lifestyle component, so all the athletes have a lifestyle advisor, and they're the key sort of linchpin, I suppose, that help those athletes to provide some of that balance. And as Tanny's already alluded to, it's not often a 50-50 balance, and probably never will be, but there are times where one is higher than the other. But they that lifestyle mentor or advisor is the key person, help sort of empower those athletes to understand how they can better manage themselves and their time, but also be that critical friend, I suppose. And I hope what we can provide at TAS is almost an independent voice for that athlete, that they don't have to go and speak to their coach about a challenge or an issue. It might be that there's a university scholarship or something else that they've got a challenge with, so they don't necessarily want to speak to the university. So we can be that point in the middle, hopefully, to provide another avenue to support those athletes.
I think there's some famous names as well that have come through your books, aren't there, with TAS?
Some of the bigger names. Tom Daly was supported back in his early career. Dina Rasher-Smith as a current one. Rebecca Adlington. With Lewis Smith. They're probably some of the more famous names, but we had 144 alumni competing in Tokyo across the Olympic and Paralympic Games in the Team GB. of which 66 won medals, 15 of them gold. So there's a lot of talent to come through the scheme, and we're fortunate enough to be able to work with those high calibre athletes.
The Talented Athlete Scholarship Scheme is based in Newcastle, just off Northumberland Road, but it sits within the entity of SportsAid, the SportsAid Trust, which Tanya used to be a trustee for, I think.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I was a SportsAid athlete to start off with. So I was funded as a young athlete, and I'm a bit too old for TAS. So, I was kind of aware of it and sort of really keen to look at the model. The dual career stuff's brilliant. And I was a trustee. I came off in 2019, I think it was, and did sort of 5 or so years on there. So it's quite hard to remember that, to be honest. But
we should have practiced that before.
Yeah, thank you. But for me, SportsAid was the first organisation outside my parents that looked at me and said, "We think you've got some talent, and we think there's some things that you can do." And I think it's not. I mean, back then it was 250 quid, which was quite a lot of money back then. But it wasn't so much the money; it was the people. And as sort of SportsAid sort of developed and grown, it's access to the parents' workshops, which as a trustee I went to quite a few, and you get to have those conversations with the parents about how selection works and what it's like, and there's that shared camaraderie and bond of being the parent of a talented child, because that's pretty hard as well. There's no training manual that comes with it. And then when it moves into TAS, where I spoke to a lot of athletes who'd been through the program, who just said how valuable it was for them, all the additional help that they can get. And actually, if you're having a bad time training, you can maybe go and do some studying. If studying's quite hard, you get to go away and train. It just, you can't train 20 hours a day. Well, you can, but you're not going to be very effective. And I think having other things in your life helps you be very focused in terms of what you do, because you can't sit around all day and look out and go, okay, the weather's not great, I'll go out in an hour, or I'll just watch something on the telly, then I'll go out. If you're studying and training, you have to, you have to be quite clear in what your goals are.
TAS is a broad network, isn't it? There's a broad network of people. There's a huge number of stakeholders. Colin, how did you and when did you first become involved in TAS and in broader sports?
Yeah, so I had previously, from university, I joined UK Sport initially in 2006 and worked within UK Sport for 4 years, and that was a great grounding into elite sport very early in my career. At that stage, TAS was UK Sport funded, and I had begun to take a little bit of a view of TAS from the UK Sport side and tried to get a bit closer to the programme and understand how it operated. And through that work, there's an opportunity to transition across, including a move from London up to the northeast of England to join TAS in 2010, when I was on a knowledge transfer partnership with Northumbria University. My role initially as part of that knowledge transfer partnership, or KTP, was to look at the first part was doing a stakeholder or analysis or situational analysis, really trying to get under the skin of what performance sport wanted from the education sector. So involved talking to performance directors, other practitioners and coaches, a few athletes as well, using that to input into TAS's future strategies. There was a commercial element of that too, where we started to do more around practitioner development, and that's a big strand of our work now. So did some research with, you will remember the discrete choice experiment, Matt, because you were critical and a big support as one of the academic supervisors. That's the second stage of the project, was looking at that practitioner development and how we could better support the practitioners that work within our network, of which there's around sort of 300-400 across all of the different disciplines. So it's a big team, and they're the ones who are athlete facing. So it's a very crude assumption, but the better quality practitioners you have, you would hope there's a better level of service to the athletes. So they're a critical cog that we need to make sure are appropriately supported and often undervalued as well, or the forgotten piece. And then my role for TAS has evolved over the years and different projects.
So in 2010, actually, you came up from London to bring a sort of step change in the business through this knowledge transfer partnership. And KTP's provided a nice vehicle for university and business collaboration to innovate within a business. And you started looking at other avenues, other ways of making commercial gains. What were some of the outputs then from, this was a 2-year project, what were some of the outputs? Can you remember between 2010 and 2012?
Yeah, so I suppose around that sort of 2010 to 2012, we were in the lead up to the London Games. We were tasked 100% UK sport funded at the time, and being 100% reliant on one stakeholder when isn't a sustainable place to be necessarily. So we wanted to make sure that we could secure TASS's future in some ways and increase other income streams. So some of the key outputs from my work was looking at ways we could generate income from others. We identified that European projects was a really good way. One, that we could learn something from our colleagues in Europe who are doing some great work in the concept of dual career. Two, we could contribute to that learning as well with our experience. And there was some posts, so my role for a bit of that transition was significantly funded by some of those projects. So I'm thankful for that personally. We've looked at other ways of increasing our service delivery and looking at where sports do have money. The FA, for example, that we could work in different ways with them and they can put some skin in the game, so to speak. So yeah, there's a lot of my role has been looking at how we can be more sustainable and I support on that transition from UK sport back to Sport England, which I think is a benefit now for where TASS is in the sector.
Yeah, brilliant. I think I'm being a bit naughty here because I was involved, but there was actually a number of academics working with TASS to make that step change through this KTP. Predominantly 70% funded by the government. What was fantastic is you did a super job. You stayed on after the KTP. And where has your role gone since then?
Yeah, so I've had a number of different sort of hats or name badges, I guess, or business cards over the years. But from project manager type roles through to where I am now as the lead for operations. Essentially, I input into the strategy, but then trying to translate that into a way that we can deliver it. And I suppose the way I like to describe the role is I try to ensure we've got the plans, the processes, the systems in place so that my great colleagues can go out and do the very good work that they do and make their lives a bit easier. So yeah, it's very much an operational sort of planning role these days.
And have you continued the relationship at all with the university in terms of, you're based close, you finished that discrete project, it was 24 months. Have you tapped into the other university resources at all? No,
definitely. The university have been a really big support from the start of TASS, and I'm in a Northumbria University building right now. We use the office space here and have done since TASS was formed nearly 20 years ago. And yeah, Northumbria have been a massive supporter to our work and through the hosting of us, but also access to academics, both informally and formally. We've got sort of contacts and friendly people throughout the institution. We've obviously had my KTP was one of the first, I suppose, more formal arrangements with the university. We've had access to placement students who have come and done some great work with us. We've had some other interns who have maybe done a little bit of design work and access to a great calibre of students. We've currently got actually a joint research associate based within sports science and psychology, who is essentially an additional member of our team doing some great research and feeding into our psychology work there, which has a big link to well-being. So yeah, there's lots of collaboration, and we've made the most or tried to make the most of our proximity to access to all that knowledge.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I like the way you talk about wellbeing, because actually we've already talked about Tanny's report in 2017 and the importance of that and the recommendations to come from that. And that led to, I don't think Tanny knows this, but this led to Colin and I having a coffee. This is around 2018, where we discussed potentially another project, didn't we, Colin? And looking at how the sporting landscape off the back of the 2017 duty of care report could foster some more collaboration work, which was linked to wellbeing.
Yeah, definitely. It was a catch-up coffee that sort of escalated in a positive way, and I've always welcomed that challenge, but also support and guidance you've offered us, Matt. I guess what we identified is that yes, well-being, dual career, as I mentioned, and so that athlete sort of holistic development, for want of a better term, has always been central to TAS, but we felt that we could do it better, and off the back of Tanny's duty of care report, which we certainly welcomed, and I think has helped us strengthen our case for TAS over the last sort of 4 years or so since the report. But yeah, we had that conversation and wanted to explore ways that we could get some better knowledge around what is well-being, what are the different components that make it up, how can we access some of that sort of psychology knowledge within the university. Is there a way that we could better monitor it and empower athletes to self-monitor? Is there a way that we could allow them to ask for help formally, informally, anonymously, or otherwise, looking at systems and processes, and that was, I guess, the gist of our project, and there's been lots of benefit from that work.
Yeah, and it must be nice, Tanny, to hear that there is, I suppose there's, from that report, that there are people who are keen to mobilise those recommendations and to look into it and to help athlete welfare and try to sort of kick the can down the road, I suppose, and better supporting athletes and driving attention away from simply just success and medals to a slightly broader piece.
Yeah, I mean, there's always been people in the system who can see the bigger picture. And it was brilliant working with Sports Aid and TAS, and there's a number of other organisations who just got it. So you didn't feel that you were kind of smashing your head into a brick wall of these moments, of trying to bring about change. And what's great is, those organisations have grown and developed and are keep working in this area and are passionate about helping young people to be the best they can in sport and outside sport. And it kind of does give me hope, although there are still challenges in the system. It does give me hope that more and more people get it and are trying to do the right thing. And it's great, when you see, different athletes competing in the GB teams, and they've got their degree or, they've got the qualification and, go on to other things. It's really nice to see that.
You're listening to Why Small Business Matters. Find out how Northumbria University can help your business thrive through the Help to Grow management programme. Delivered by leading small business and enterprise experts from Northumbria University, with the support of leading figures from industry and experienced entrepreneurs. The programme supports senior managers of small and medium-sized businesses to boost their business's performance, resilience and long-term growth. The 12-week programme is 90% funded by the government, and the fee payable by participants is £750 and has been designed to allow participants to complete it alongside full-time work. The in-depth, high-quality curriculum supports you to build your capabilities in leadership, innovation, digital adoption, employee engagement, marketing, responsible business and financial management. By the end of the program, you'll develop a business growth plan to help you lead your business to realise its potential. To find out more about the program, the modules, eligibility and fees and delivery dates, go to northumbria.ac.uk/help-to-grow.
You're listening to Why Small Business Matters. My name is Matt Sutherland and my guests today are Tanny Grey-Thompson and Colin Allen. We're talking about sport and how the Sports Aid Trust managed to boost company performance through creating a strong partnership with Northumbria University. And Tanny's relationship with Northumbria is actually started really more formalised in 2015 when you became the Chancellor of Northumbria University. And what does that involve, really? Sorry, forgive me, maybe I should know, but what's your relationship was formalised in 2015, and what's it been like?
I mean, it's a fabulous title, isn't it? But I have no power to do anything at all. My power is to shake hands at degree ceremonies. That is it. So I get to wear an amazing gold embroidered gown, which is very heavy and it's very beautiful, and it was specially made for me. And I get to shake hands and say congratulations and well done. And degree days are lovely. I mean, because every student has been through so many ups and downs to get to that point, and you see lots of friends and family who are very proud, and it's a massive celebration. Although there was one boy, poor lad, a couple of years ago, he forgot to book his photographs. Big mistake. And his mum was wiping the floor with him. And I went sort of intervened and said, look, I'll sort it, right? I can help with that. And he sort of said to me, you'd think getting a first would be enough. I went, oh no, you do not understand. The photograph is the most important bit of it today for your mother. So we do have some funny moments, but it's lovely to be part of people's celebrations.
It's brilliant. It's important. It's fantastic, and I think it's it also gives you, I suppose, a kind of insight to how universities are working, and I suppose the role they have in the ecosystem, don't they? Because they're important vehicles for not just employment but for social change and for the economy. Many of the guests that come on to our podcast, and our last episode was Lucy Winskill, who's our outgoing Pro-Vice Chancellor for Employability and Partnerships, talked about the importance of university in helping with levelling up and helping with taking, especially the North East region, forward. How important do you think that universities play in the economy and in supporting communities?
I mean, it's massive. You look at the employees of the university, and then, the students who come from all over. It's quite funny. People have a view of Newcastle, whether it's right or wrong, which is sometimes challenged in a very positive way when people come here. No, I think it's massively important, and I think, the pretty friendly rivalry between Newcastle and Northumbria is great in terms of, who's highest on the rankings and, research and all things like that. I think that helps it helps the city and it helps the wider community. It's just important that young people have a choice of degrees and where they want to study that suits them. And, there's a number of, if I look at, Vicky Pendleton studied, at Northumbria, and Ellen Buttrick, who got a gold medal in the Paralympics at Rowan, and now I've started naming people I should never have done that because I'm going to forget loads. But they talk really proudly of their time at Northumbria, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to be involved, was knowing people who'd been through and just said, what a difference it made to their lives. And it's great to be part of that celebration.
And I think you're right, Tanya, around the contribution that universities make wider than just giving out degree certificates, because I can't take any credit, but TAS was set up and has essentially piggybacked on goodwill from the university sector and the fantastic facilities, the great practitioners. They bring a lot. It is a partnership with TAS, and without the university network, we wouldn't exist. And so, and we certainly. I should give them credit. We don't pay market rates for the services they provide, and we get a lot of goodwill back from the sector. And so they are an undervalued but key component to the sporting landscape. That's not just Northumbria, that's across the board, and I think they're often forgotten by others within and outside the sporting sector.
So this podcast is all around why small business matters and how do small businesses within the field of sport contribute towards supporting our next Olympic athletes.
From an elite sport perspective, I feel it's probably a misconception within the wider public that it's essentially it is just a series of small businesses. Most of the Olympic, Paralympic, national governing bodies are small businesses. They're working on relatively sort of modest budgets with a handful of staff, both sort of operationally and sort of coaches, and they're the ones that are the day-to-day making sure that there are pathways in place for talent identification, supporting those athletes. So I think in terms of elite sport, it's essentially a collaboration of lots of small business partners, really. So from that perspective, it's not all massive FIFA, UEFA type organisations. The majority of sports aren't like that, certainly when we're talking Olympic, Paralympics. So yeah, I guess that's how I see it.
I'm glad Colin said that, because I think, athletes are small businesses. As you grow and develop, you have a network around you, and, depending what sport you're from, you have to learn about contracts and sponsorship and media and social media and, projecting yourself and doing the right thing. And, so, learning all those things are really important if you want to be successful, because not everyone can afford to have a really expensive agent. And, your first contracts you might sign, they can be really complicated, and you need to understand what you're signing. And if a brand wants to sponsor you, what they want you to do or what they don't want you to do. So actually, it's interesting when athletes transition out, quite a few say to me, I'm not sure what skills I have. And actually, you've got loads and loads of skills which would fit into lots of businesses. They just don't always understand that. And, actually for me as an athlete, my first sponsors were small businesses, really small, but local businesses who wanted to help somebody. So I always think businesses can have a much bigger impact on the sporting community than maybe they think they can. So it's a really important relationship that you have.
Thank you to today's guests, Tanni Grey-Thompson and Colin Allen. Find out how Northumbria University can help your business. Head online to northumbria.ac.uk/help to grow, where you can find out all about the Help to Grow management programme and the broader support on offer to small businesses from Northumbria University. Don't forget to check out our previous episodes on the podcast, and we'll see you next time on Why Small Business Matters.